And welcome back to the special edition of Hannity Live from Sioux City, Iowa. Joining me now is the candidate that is now leading in the polls in Iowa and around the country, the man you just heard from, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. How are you? Welcome.
Great to be with you.
You enjoyed the debate? You have fun?
I thought it was a good debate. I thought, we've all gotten to know each other better. And so there's a camaraderie up there. It may not always seem that way when but there's a camaraderie. We're all on a journey together. And I think it was very good.
I did notice that there were times that it seemingly was openings for people to go after you, and they didn't take it. The one person that was going after you more than anybody, obviously, was Michelle Bachmann.
Yeah, and I think everybody has their own style. And I think that because we're willing, there's some genuine affection. I really like Rick Perry. I really like Rick Santorum. I've known him a long time. Mitt and I have gotten to be much closer over the courses. John Huntsman and I did a great debate last Monday in New Hampshire. Very substantive, a lot of fun. So there's a camaraderie building. And even although I think the toughest ads against me are being run by Ron Paul, it's very hard to really dislike Ron Paul. I mean, he's just sort of who he is.
It was very interesting because at one point in the debate they were asking you about temperament and running for president and whether or not you're disciplined enough. Do you think in the course of these debates, as you stayed disciplined and you're not going negative and you're just answering the question, that maybe you're proving some of that narrative is false?
Oh, I think people are going to watch us and they will render judgment. But as you know, because you've seen me for most of my career, I'm actually very disciplined. I work very, very hard. I have a real sense of purpose. But it is true, when you're trying to get something as big as balancing the budget for 4 straight years, you do some zigzagging because I was dealing with a liberal Democratic president. So some of the guys who are purists say, well, wait a second, you actually did some things that Bill Clinton was willing to sign. Well, yeah, I mean, you want to get to a balanced budget with a Democratic president, you got to find some way to find a common ground that'll work.
I found tonight was the first time you really honed in on your past record and wanted to get your side of the story out. I want to give you an opportunity to respond to Michelle Bachmann in one more sense, because you said to her, and she seemed to take offense later in the debate, that when you said it was factually untrue, some of the allegations she was making about pro-life, and in the earlier case about Freddie Mac. You say you were not a lobbyist. She's claiming you were an influence peddler.
Yeah, and it's just factually false.
Yeah.
And it's factually false for a practical reason. I had a broad enough base of activities. I mean, written 24 books, 13 New York Times bestsellers, made 7 movies. I mean, we're doing tons of stuff. I had zero reason to ever once try to say to somebody, oh, please give me money and I'll go represent you in any form. What I have done as a citizen is I've said what I believe the party needs to hear. I've said what I think the country needs to hear. I spent 6 years working with the Bush administration on both health and national security. It was all for free.
What did you do for Freddie Mac? I mean,
I advised them largely on 2 things. How do you explain government-sponsored enterprises? And second, how do you design a program that enables the poor to be able to afford to get into housing? And my focus was, because I'd come out of a background of Habitat for Humanity, how do you teach them budgeting? How do you teach them how to set money aside? How do you teach them to take care of the house? I've watched families that don't have very much money, but they know how to take care of a house, and they can have a much bigger, much better house than a family that doesn't understand how to take care of a house.
Let me go back to the words you used that we were just playing the SOT earlier about the judiciary. You said arrogant, dictatorial, we should not have a judicial dictatorship. And it was interesting because that I recall come up in previous debates. And
I commended Megyn Kelly for raising it and staying on it.
Yeah.
So tonight is the first time, I think, probably since Lincoln's debates in his inaugural 1861, that you've seen a presidential candidate in this kind of a setting talking in depth about the need to rebalance the judiciary, I think, and talking about it in a very serious, sophisticated way, not just railing against liberal judges, but saying, look, the whole attitude of the judiciary is out of sync. They're not dictators. They don't define the Constitution. They are one of 3 co-equal branches, and we were promised in the Federalist Papers they'd actually be the weakest of the 3 branches. Now, when I look at somebody like Judge Barry in San Antonio, who on June 1st said to students, not only can you not pray at your graduation, you cannot use the word benediction, You cannot use the word invocation. You cannot ask people to stand. You cannot mention God. You cannot ask for a moment of silence. And if you break any of these, I will put your superintendent in jail. Now, I thought to myself, this is an anti-American dictatorial ruling. That guy shouldn't be on the bench.
You said yesterday to me, when I was interviewing you on radio, you had responded to Mitt Romney, and you said you felt you got off your message. In other words, for the day, because he had said you're zany, et cetera. And then you were joking about it tonight when you said zany, editing. I'll use mild words. So obviously you were joking about it tonight. What did you mean by that? That you got off?
Well, there was a very brief moment where, frankly, he got under my skin.
Yeah.
And I responded in a way that made no sense, doesn't fit my values, and made some references to Bain, where I've said publicly he's a good manager. He's a good businessman. He got that round. If you were scoring rounds in boxing, I'd give that round to Mitt. But I then spent a day thinking it through. We issued a letter. We've issued instructions to our entire team. This campaign from day one has been based on very big solutions and a relentlessly positive approach. And I think people who watch the debates
Last
know
question.
I've really worked at that.
How do you get, if you become the nominee, how will you convince Barack Obama for the Lincoln-Douglas style debates? I think you said, what, seven of them?
Seven of them, the same as Lincoln.
How are you going to get Barack Obama to agree to that?
If he hasn't agreed by the time I am in my acceptance speech in Tampa, I will announce that as of that evening, the White House is my scheduler, and wherever he goes, I will show up 4 hours later and take apart his speech until he agrees to a debate.
And you believe that'll force him to
I think he'll look absurd. This is what Lincoln did to Douglas. That's why Douglas agreed to debate, and so I'm prepared to do it to Obama.